Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Viewers, good day and welcome to another interesting episode of the headliner on Mikia TV, recorded on Tuesday, the 16th of April 2024. I'm your host, Umar Isa Dandago. Well, last Saturday at night, Iran launched what it called a retaliatory attack on the state of Israel, its quote-unquote sworn enemy, following what? An attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, the capital city of the Bashar al-Assad's Syria. That attack, Iran said, was carried out by Israel on the 1st of April 2024, even though Israel has not yet claimed responsibility for the attack. The Saturday's attack, which involved about more than 200 or more than 300 drones and missiles, were fired from Iran and some from Yemen and Lebanon. Israel says it has intercepted 99% of those missiles and drones, but had some help rather from the UK, the US, and even the Arab nation of Jordan. There were some reports suggesting that Saudi Arabia had a hand in foiling the attack, but as of today, Tuesday, the Saudis are denying their involvement. So the questions we're going to be asking are, why have the Iranians and the Israelis been enemies, been at each other's throats diplomatically? What do we have to know about this latest escalation? And how does the Iran-Israel tension affect us here in Africa and specifically Nigeria? Well, to dissect this and break it down into pieces for easy assimilation and consumption, I'm joined in the studio by Dr Kabiru Sufi, a lecturer here in Kano State at CAS Kano, here in Kano State, northern Nigeria, and he's a huge expert in the field of political science and international relations. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on the show.
Umar, thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. It's been a while since we sat down together to address.
Indeed, except that when you say huge, that word sounds very strange to me.
Well, a lot of people would testify to the fact that you're a huge scholar in this field because of your enormous knowledge and analysis that you give, and we are really proud of you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, a lot is happening in the Middle East, not only in the Middle East, in the world. We have the war in Ukraine, the other war in Gaza, and the forgotten war in Sudan, which probably towards the end we'll be able to address, compared to what is currently happening now between Israel and Iran. Briefly, why have Iran and Israel been sort of sworn enemies?
Well, I think this can be attributed to a lot of factors.
Okay.
One, maybe because of the fact that Lebanon has been is Israel's immediate neighbor.
Okay.
Yes, and is one of the aggressors in the whatever Palestinian Israeli conflict.
You said aggressor.
Yes, so to speak.
Okay.
There are direct aggressors, there are indirect aggressors. It depends on the kind of aggression you mean, and it depends on which side one is supporting.
When you describe Lebanon as an aggressor, you saying that aggressor towards Israel or aggressor towards the
towards the Israeli state. I mean, the Israeli view is that any of their neighbor that shelters or shields, I mean, fighters, those they call fighters, is an ally to the fighters, and is a collaborator to the fighters, and is also complicit in the whole crisis. As such, in that regard, Israel is seeing Lebanon as a co-conspirator in this fight, as such, and then you can see Lebanon has direct linkage with Iran, for example, when you look at the leadership and its involvement and whatever. So in that,
but Iran does not have a direct influence on the Lebanese government compared to the influence it has on the Iraqi government, the current Iraqi government, and the successive the previous Iraqi government after Saddam Hussein, for example?
It does, in the sense, not directly. It doesn't have to be on the government, for example.
Okay.
When you control the spiritual leadership,
Okay.
you understand, and so that is another direct linkage to it. So in that regards, Iran is seen as, maybe when you talk of Hezbollah, for example, being an ally of Iran,
headed by Hassan
Nasrallah.
Okay.
Yes, of course, and being an ally of what? Of Iran. So in that regards, you can see there is a linkage between Iran, Lebanon, and of course the Palestinian conflict.
So and to get things straight, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yes.
Any ally of Iran in the region,
yes,
is considered a threat to the existence of the state of Israel.
Exactly. That is directly or indirectly what it means.
And is it true?
Yes, it is. It is. That is just how it is. Take for example the Houthi. For example, you can see in Yemen, you can see the blockade by the Houthi, and of course, whoever is seen as an ally of Israel was being attacked by the Houthi. So you can see these are all signs that the network being considered as an enemy network by extension Syria too. Yes, so Bashar al-Assad. So all these things, and beyond Iran, for example, you can even go to say that there is the friendship between the Iranians, the Syrians, the Houthis, and of course, for example, the Russians. Yes, and Israel on one hand is, of course, being an ally of the West and the United States of America. So the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Jordanians and what have you. So you can see the whole network of one side being against the other is coming to play. So that is where Iran becomes one of the targets of the Israeli aggression.
What about religion? Is it not a factor? Is it because like the Iranians are Shia and the Saudis are Sunni, that the West is backing one part, that's the Saudis part, and Russia is backing the Shia guys, the Iranian guys? Is religion a factor, really?
Maybe when you translate it down, it can be a factor, but I don't think the Russians will care about who is a Sunni or who is a Shiite. But then they care about Iran, for example, and if Iran is for Shiites, fine. Then Russia will support Shiites wherever they are. Then that is the same with Saudi Arabia. But sometimes this issue of religion gets downplayed, depending on what happened and what is at stake. For example, the September 11 attack, for example, the US 2001, and there is these people that wanted to force the narrative down on the throats of the Western governments that it was a Sunni thing, a Sunni Wahhabi thing. You understand? Yes. So initially, because
Osama bin Laden is from Saudi
Arabia, for example,
they linked it to him,
and by extension to Sunni Wahhabism. You understand? So they wanted to take it that way, but then they had to reject it because Sunnis have always been allies. So of course they had to reject it because directly they couldn't pin it directly to. So it depends on what is at play. So maybe if you go down to another level, yes, religion can also be a factor.
So can we take?
And that is where when you were talking about Lebanon, I said the spiritual wing, that is the Shiite. It may not necessarily be. There can be, I mean, some level where somebody can be stronger than the government itself, and that is where the spiritual leaders come to play. Yes, so the Hezbollah, for example, can be more powerful than the constituted government of Lebanon in that regards.
And maybe some years ago, that was why the Prime Minister, was it Saad Hariri, had to step down because of some complex political turmoil that rocked the country.
Exactly.
You used the word proxy, I think, in the beginning of your statement. Can we say that this whole thing that is happening in the Middle East is a proxy war between the US in the West and Russia in the Eastern Bloc, for example? That's what they are using Iran, Saudi Arabia and its allies, and Iran and its allies to fight the war on their behalf, for example?
Maybe from the beginning that was not what really happened or what was happening, but later on things may take that dimension. For example, as it is now. But the United States of America is trying to shy away from that. For example, they have just warned Israel that attacking Iran will leave them on their own. Meaning that the United States of America is being careful and not turning it directly into a proxy war in the same that we had during the Cold War era, and of course slightly after the post-Cold War era. But all the same, when you look at the dynamics at play, then you can say yes, in a way it is turning into, and especially when it comes to the United Nations, we see who backs who. Especially at the Security Council. That is where then you will know, by extension, it can be a proxy war. It did not start at that level, but then it has a tendency of turning into a proxy war.
Okay, this is more of an introductory part. Let's move on now to the real thing that is currently happening in the Middle East. Last Saturday, like I said in my introduction, Iran launched a direct attack for the very first time in years, in decades, or even in the history of its relations, its sour relations with the Israelis. It launched an attack, more than 300 plus drones and missiles directly to Israel, but then with minimal damage. They said 99% were intercepted. First of all, what would you say about the whole thing that happened, and why did Iran do this?
Well, about why did Iran do this, I think you did not mention about the attack on the Iranian embassy.
So that's the background we want to hear
from you. Yes, that is, you understand. So I think that attack on the Iranian embassy a few days before this Iranian retaliatory attack. Now, you can see we call it what? Retaliatory attack. So some few days before the retaliatory attacks by Iran, the attack on the embassy, and of course the killing of a very key figure in the Iranian military in that attack has really provoked the Iranian government. And people were saying we have adopted a policy of wait and see. What will Iran do? You understand? In recent times, Iran has suffered lots of attacks on its key figures, on its embassies. For example, the killing of General Soleimani
in 2020. We covered it a lot when we were doing Global Arena.
So if Iran allows these kind of attacks to continue, then definitely, I mean, they are putting a question mark to all the belief that Iraq has once almost attained a nuclear power, position in global politics.
Iran.
Yes, Iran. Yes, because that was the assumption. When all those people were targeted and they were being killed, the explanation from the West and especially from the United States of America is that these are key figures in pushing Iran towards attaining or becoming a nuclear power and what have you. So, I mean, most of them, they will be ordinary scientists and then they will be attacked and then they will be killed. And then it will seem as if it's a major setback towards pushing Iran into becoming a global nuclear power.
You said ordinary scientists. You don't believe that they were scientists responsible for developing?
No, probably they may be ordinary scientists. That is how the Iranian government want us to believe that they were ordinary scientists.
And you believe them?
Well, I think it all depends on whether you want to, in totality, believe in whatever is the IAEA assessment of the Iranian Energy Agency. Yes, their own assessment of Iran's move towards becoming a nuclear power. So when those people were attacked and they were killed, and the belief was that Iran was always being pushed back in its own quest to become a global nuclear power. And this is one of the reasons why, the United States of America and its allies in the West feel that Iran has to be restrained in its race towards attaining global nuclear power position. So if this kind of attacks continue without Iran retaliating, then probably it may demystify the position or the assumption that Iran was in way to becoming a global nuclear power country. You understand? So when they were attacked once, they were attacked twice, and especially now, not by the United States of America, but by Israel.
Even though Israel has not yet taken
responsibility. Okay. Yes, but all fingers pointed towards Israel, and there was no real denial from.
They keep quiet.
Yes, so it was.
They
as
neither.
Yes, claim it clears or deny it. Okay. So it is. So I mean, Iran had to retaliate. But then, despite the fact that many people believe that the scale of the attack is very large, considering about 300 drones and what have you, but many people believe that Iran was only sending a message, because the drone used by Iran wasn't the main pride of the Iranian military. Okay. They had, you understand, they had their own pride, which they could have tried, but Iran refused to try it. So up till now, nobody knows whether that pride of the Iranian military, the drones that have been the pride of the Iranian military, whether they could be intercepted or not. They used ordinary drones.
What do you call it in international relations? Deterrence or what? When somebody is using a small part of the military might.
Yes, yes, it's a kind of deterrence, and sometimes it's a kind of testing their own might. Yes, and maybe showing their. But in all, there is this belief that the two attacks, October 10th, and of course the Iranian drones attack.
Which one is October 10th?
The Hamas.
Okay, October 7th.
October 7th attack. Yes, I mean, and the Iranian. These two attacks, it is believed, have in a way demystify the belief that Israeli intelligence is the best the world over. You understand?
It can be infiltrated. It can be
infiltrated. It can be yes. It can be attacked. It can be surprised.
Yes, as it happened
on October 7th. Yes, they were surprised beyond measures, and that was what happened with the Iranian. No prior knowledge of what was about to happen until it happened, and then so even if they were intercepted, the two had demystified. I mean the Israeli belief. I mean the Israeli might, which was many people believe that. In a way, if this kind of things continue happening, then definitely one can say that it is affecting the status of Israel. Of course, when it comes to warfare, intelligence, and what have you.
Now talk to me about the attack launched suspectedly, allegedly by Israel on the consulate of Iran in Damascus.
Yes.
Was it a breach of international diplomacy to attack somebody's
and I think that was why the Israelis were quiet about it. Yes, because of the sanctity of embassies. Yes, yes, if you can cast your mind back to Julian Assange, yes, he was a fugitive of the law, and he ran into an embassy of a country, Ecuador, a country that is considered maybe of lower status when you compare it with the United Kingdom, because of the sanctity of the embassy. It had to be allowed and let go. So if you attack an embassy, I think it's an attack on diplomacy itself. Yes, because of the status of the embassy itself. It was the last thing that probably the Iranians will have expected from the Israelis or from any other reasonable country at that moment. So it was really, and I am surprised why so many people try to downplay it. Yes, it was.
Is it because that's how the West is portraying it? They are downplaying.
Yes, they are
showing this side.
Yes, they are downplaying it. What matters most to them is, of course, I mean, the attack on Israel. Yes, but nobody is trying to see that an embassy has been attacked in a country that is already in crisis. That ordinarily, I mean, their own embassies should have been given a special status. And so, but it was initially it was downplayed. And so, when the Iranian now retaliated, and that has been overblown out of proportion. So I think if you compare the two, they are trying to compare the two. Especially compare the scale of attack, the scale of the attack, the weapons
Yes.
used, I mean, the sophistication of the weaponry and what have you.
Yeah.
But nobody is talking about the sanctity of the embassy,
Yes.
and of course the damage
Yeah.
that it has, because this one
Yeah.
was with minimal damage.
Yeah.
If 99% of the drones have been
Yeah.
intercepted,
Yes.
it means it came with minimal damage.
Yes.
But if that one resulted into the death of a military general, which a pride of the country
Yeah.
itself, that they feel they can send outside at that critical moment, then I believe that you can see the scale of the attack when you compare the two. But then the one was downplayed, and another one was overblown out of proportion.
Maybe because Iran does not have the power as the powerful
Of
media,
the media, yes,
that the West has.
yes, that the West has, and it's like there's a conspiracy of ideas, so to speak. I mean, you can be silenced.
Okay.
The media can silence you, and the media can do whatever they want to do with you. They can push you, they can elevate you, they can, and exactly that is what is happening, changing the narratives, so to speak.
Yes, in Israel, some people were worried, especially on Sunday after the attack, that something could follow. But then the Iranians have made it categorically clear that they still have no plan of attacking again. But then the global leaders have been criticized for not, even the UN has been criticized for not criticizing the attack on the consulate of Iran in Damascus. But then a lot of world leaders have started criticizing Iran for launching this retaliatory attack. Double standard or what?
This is double standard.
Okay.
This is the hypocritical position of most global or international organizations. Sometimes, of course, they fail to say things as they are, or to see things as they are. And exactly this is what happened with regard to the two attacks.
Yes.
I mean, being silent over one, and then trying to be very loud over another. That is exactly what happened.
Okay. Briefly, we are running out of time. We've got like 5 minutes or less before we go. I don't know whether we talked about it in the beginning briefly, but then paint a picture to us of the kind of military and political influence of Iran in the region. For example, you talked about earlier Hezbollah, Houthis, and so on and so forth. What more do we have to know about the influence of Iran in the region, for example, that makes it what it is?
Well, possibly what makes it what it is, of course, its allies. Number one.
Yes.
Yes. One, the Iranian government or Iran as a country or whatever is an ally of the Russians.
Yeah. Okay.
And this makes it an isolated country.
Okay.
That is before we even come to the religious ideology.
Yes.
Having an ally in Russia. You understand?
Yes.
Yes. So it has now made Iran an isolated country, because in a region that is dominated by countries that are loyal to the countries of America, and of course its European allies. So you have a country that is loyal or friend with Russia, then it is an isolated country.
So I understand that Iran is afraid of what happened in the 80s between Iraq under Saddam Hussein and Iran. That's why it has decided to forge relations with the Russians and create those militia groups, for example. So
and it has helped them in a way. Or how it has helped them is because not many people knew what is happening inside Iran. You understand? Yes. So most of the times, the Iranian position has become more of like a myth. Nobody is aware of the reality on
inside
the ground.
Because they have been closed.
Yes, they have been closed, and they have been busy on their own. You understand? Yes, pretending all is well, and then trying to make allies where they feel they can make allies. For example, with Syria, and then with the Houthis, for example, the Houthis became maybe an opportunity for the Iranians. Yes, considering the fact that this is what the Houthis were fighting in Yemen, and then who Saudi Arabia was supporting. So quickly, I mean, Iran jumped into it. And then there is the religious and ideological part of it.
Okay, yes.
So it has now, of course, made them an isolated case
Yes.
again in an area that is mostly Sunni dominated. So the few Shiite countries and allies will definitely become allies of Iran, and then will receive support from Iran, and then will now become also another, forming their own power block, so to speak. Iran, Yemen, the Houthis in Yemen. I mean, CMA. Then you talk about Syria.
Syria, yes. Bashar al-Assad, yes.
And then Lebanon, for example. So they're also trying to create their own corridor within the region itself.
Is that what you call under the theory of realism in international relations?
International relations.
Okay.
Yes.
Finally, before we go, despite all the sanctions that have been imposed on Iran by the West, for example, inside the country, there have been reports of saying that the country is developed. They have one of the best system of education. Their people are happy with the system, quote unquote. That's an inside view, I'm telling you. Somebody visited the country and she was telling me, she was narrating to me yesterday that the people were happy with the government. You'd see nobody criticizing the government.
Yes, nobody criticizing the government doesn't necessarily mean everyone is happy.
But they're happy with the system of education. They're fine. They live their lives without complaining and so on and so forth. Maybe, as you said, that depends on the system.
Yes.
Has that been an advantage? Briefly, we have 1 minute to go. Has that been an advantage, the isolation to the Iranians?
Yes, it has been, and I think in that regard, they are also trying to copy from another ally.
Okay.
That is China, for example.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you can understand. This is exactly, I think, the Chinese scenario.
Yes.
I mean, China does not struggle. For dominance.
Yes.
In no more struggle for dominance in the international arena. And they have already accepted the fact. If you tell them that they are the second most powerful country, the most important country, whatever you tell them, they accept it. You put them second, you put them third, you put them fourth. The Chinese does not really care. You understand? Yes, minding their own business, and that is what the Iranians are doing. Just like the Chinese, not really necessarily.
They don't care about
to amplify their own position. No, and in a way, it is helping them. One, nobody really knows what they are doing or what they are up to, and then when they come out with it, then it surprises the world. You can decide to talk about it. You can decide to amplify it, like the Turkish are doing.
Yes.
When it comes to, for example, the drones.
The
people are now trying to remember the name of the drones of the Iranians, and it's becoming difficult for people to remember. While that of the Turkish has also, everybody knows about it and its sophistication in the world. So, and now people are trying to gauge what is the level of sophistication of their own drones and what have you, because they don't really care to show the world the level of sophistication of their own drones. And they have now told the world that they have not used their own most sophisticated drones in these attacks. So you can see, I mean, nobody is saying that this is what they are doing. But then I'm not sure about that happiness issue, whether people in the country are happy and what have you. And even their own level of progress.
So that could be a propaganda.
Yes, and then within their own level of progress, nobody could say. But then, if all this, I mean, people will be attacked, people will be killed, military generals, scientists, like I said, then it means that Iran must be up to something, and the West must have known, even if it's a little, and it is not comfortable with it.
Well, we're running out of time. We're just out of time. Thank you very much, Dr. Kabiru Sufi, for being on the show. Briefly, what can you say about the show?
Well, I think it's going places, and it has a tendency of going places. And I believe maybe as from today, I've been trying to watch, but I will be hooked depending on who you bring to the studio. I know that going by the record you have had in the radio and what have you, you have always had an eye of bringing. So that is why when you selected me, I was feeling like and trying to be where I belong. But I'm happy to be here, and I know that you will bring in some more guests that will continue to shed some more light into global issues as they unfold. You
are truly among the best. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of everyone that has contributed My name is Umar Isa Dandago. On behalf of everyone that has contributed to the production of the show, the producer is Dr. Ali Musa at Coventry University. Muhammad Kudubu is my video editor and cameraman. On behalf of everyone, like I said, my name is Umar Isa Dandago, and we are coming back very soon. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.